This podcast is sponsored by A. Miller George Funeral Home, where each life is celebrated, and their sister company, Cremation London and Middlesex, both family-owned and operated. By Hyde Park Care Pharmacy. Experience the difference an independent pharmacy can make for you and your loved ones. Hyde Park Care Pharmacy offers personalized care, short wait time, very competitive pricing, easy transfer of your prescription, and much more. And by Molly Maid. During these times of COVID-19, it has never been more important to keep your family safe. With the Healthy Home Cleaning System, Molly Maid London is here to help. Make your home a healthy haven. Call Molly Maid London today. Today we welcome radio royalty. Erin Davis is a member of the Canadian Music and Broadcast Industry Hall of Fame. She called CHFI in Toronto home for nearly 38 years, where she co-hosted the award-winning morning show. She also hosted her own TV show. She's now retired and has written a memoir titled Mourning Has Broken. In 2015, Erin and Rob received the tragic news that their daughter Lauren had died in her sleep at age 24. The book is heart-wrenching and heartwarming as Erin shares her story of grief and loss, of hope and gratitude.
Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever and wherever you may be listening. We welcome you back to another edition of the Vicar's Crossing podcast. The Vicar's Crossing is a virtual space where faith intersects with the public square, and where two vicars and the best producer in Southwestern Ontario sit and do this podcast. My name is Rob Henderson, and I'm the priest at Holy Trinity St. Stephen's Anglican Church in London.
Hello, Vicar. How are you? My name is Kevin George. I am priest rector Becca at St. Aidan's Anglican Church in the northwest corner of the city, where I get to hang out with this digital deacon we have.
I didn't know I got a promotion, but yeah. My name is Ian. I'm a singer-songwriter and a producer and a whole bunch of other things when needed.
He does it all, man.
Yeah.
Well, we're glad to be back together again for another podcast. We have a wonderful guest today, someone I've really been looking forward to meeting, because in my previous life, I used to work in the radio industry, and Erin Davis was certainly a well-known name to me. So really looking forward to meeting Erin Davis today. She'll be with us shortly to discuss her book, which is called Mourning Has Broken. So
would you say radio royalty? Would you say?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think, if I remember, and I don't know if she'll be happy to hear this, but I think we used a lot of her air checks in seminary or in wrong school. Probably did.
Well, maybe they did. They should have.
Air checks in radio school back in the day at Fanshawe. Yeah.
Oh, is that right?
Her and other, people in Toronto and Vancouver and stuff. So that's good.
This is dropping on St. Patrick's Day, and she's done something that we'd all like to do. I think, at least I would like to do, is she's a former Grand Marshal of the St. Patrick's Day Parade in Toronto.
Right.
So,
right. That's cool.
I mean, one day that's my goal.
Is it? Yeah, to marshal the parade.
To marshal the parade. Anybody out there listening, if you have a way to make me the Grand Marshal of the St. Patrick's Day Parade,
right.
Give me a call. Anyway, we should acknowledge, before we get too far down this road, we want to just step back and acknowledge the land upon which we record this podcast. The Vicar's Crossing then acknowledges that we are recording today from the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and Lenaweapak and Attawandaron peoples on the lands connected with the London Township and Sombre Treaties of 1796 in the Dish with One Spoon Covenant Wampum. This land continues to be home to diverse Indigenous peoples, our Métis, Inuit, First Nations, whom we recognize as contemporary stewards of this land and vital contributors to our society. And we, along with this community, want to work towards reconciliation. And with that, I will say, we have a bonus episode dropping on Sunday with an incredible pastor named Rich Villadess. And Rich writes about reconciliation in his book called A Deep-Rooted Spirituality, I think it's called. Anyway, he writes incredibly about reconciliation. And I can't help but think, as I've been reading it this last couple of days, about the work we need to do in this country to heal our nation in terms of our relationships with First Nations. So look forward to that, folks.
Good. And hello and thanks to our sponsors here at the Vickers Crossing, to A. Miller George Funeral Home, where each life is celebrated, and their sister company, Cremation London, Middlesex, both family owned and operated. And tip of a hat on this St. Patty's Day to our good friend Dave Mullen and all the staff at A. Miller George.
Yes, Dave. Good that you're out there, buddy. Keep her rolling, okay? Carol Basada, the very expecting Carol Basada at Hyde Park Care Pharmacy, the best pharmacist in the land, as far as I'm concerned. And they have a great local pharmacy right here in our neighborhood, locally owned, locally operated, locally loved, Hyde Park Road, up near Sarnia. Go get your drugs there. You can't get it better anywhere else.
And last but certainly not least, I can't believe I have to say that more than once. We want to say a special thank you to Molly Maid. Make your home a healthy haven. Call Molly Maid London today. And Trisha Lister hooked us up with that one, and big thank you to them.
Trisha rocks.
All right.
Oh,
Good
yeah.
stuff.
Rocks and rolls.
I guess we should acknowledge that this show is being recorded the day before St. Patty's Day, and us three goobers weren't smart enough to think ahead. None of us are wearing green.
We're green. No,
Yeah.
I'm looking around here thinking, is there anything green I can
well, there's green on my McDonald's
there you
container.
go.
So,
My wife has a plant over here. I was thinking maybe ripping the top of it off, but
you ever name your plants?
No, I've not named the plants.
Oh, when I was in university, I tried keeping a plant. Like when I was back in undergraduate in St. John's at Memorial University. Shout out to Mon. So I named my plant Robert Plant.
Nice.
Didn't last though.
No.
I got fried.
You had to do a funeral for Robert? Was that your first funeral?
I had to bury it. Yep.
Yeah, that was it. Well, he was already buried technically.
Yeah.
All right, guys, you want to play our new game here in the Vickers Crossing?
Ooh, let's do it. Let's do it. What is it?
Do you want to play a game?
Yes.
It's called
It's not a lie if you believe it.
Oh, yeah, Mr. Costanza.
That's right. That's right. And thinking of George today, because as George has taught us, it's not a lie if you believe it. And so once again, one of us will be telling a story, and it's up to the other two to figure out whether or not they're lying. And if they are lying and they believe it, then I guess it's not a lie.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Now, who's up today, Robbie?
I believe I am.
You're up today? Okay, all right. Well, this
Ooh.
should get good. I know I was talking last week about eating roadkill and stuff, I think. So
That's true. Yeah. No, I'm not going to go too far on that today. I'm going to do something else. But I'm going to tell you that at one point in my life, I was able to have drinks with Donald Sutherland. I was able to sit down and have drinks with Donald Sutherland.
now I feel like we talked about Donald Sutherland recently because of Lenny, right? Or not Lenny? No, last week Guthrie was talking about.
Okay.
We were talking about politics and people. Bringing their faith to politics. We got talking about Tommy Douglas, and he said, "Now isn't he grandfather to Kiefer Sutherland?" And I said, "Yeah." So now Kiefer's dad is Donald. So you're saying that you had the opportunity to have drinks with Donald Sutherland?
I had drinks with Donald Sutherland.
Oh, you had drinks with Donald. Not that you had
At
the
one
opportunity.
point.
At one point, you drank.
I
with
actually
Donald Sutherland.
did sit down and have drinks with Donald Sutherland.
Well, I tried to tell you I had cigarettes with Martin Sheen. So I mean, we're hitting off all the big categories here. I think you did. I think you did drink with Donald Sutherland.
I believe
like
it.
you did.
I don't see why that couldn't happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like you did.
Okay.
I feel like you
Well,
knocked
pretty
back
much.
knocked back some whiskey.
Yeah, you like a drink or two. So this
Yeah.
is, who knows? I
Possible.
believe it. I
You
believe
both
it.
I'll believe it.
believe
I'm going to go
Yeah.
with believe it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm with Kevin.
Well, the truth of the matter is that you are correct. I have had drinks with Donald Sutherland,
Uh-huh.
but I must confess that my wife's maiden name is Sutherland and her dad's name is Don.
I should have.
Nice.
I knew that too. I can't believe that didn't pop into my. I knew that too.
Nice.
You sneaky little. I won't say.
That's
it.
a good one.
And
That's-
you know what Margie's
Vicar.
brother's name is? You know Margie's brother's
Is
name
it?
is?
It's not Kiefer, is it?
No, Don.
Don.
There's Don Senior and Don Junior. So I've had
Wow.
multiple drinks with multiple Don Sutherlands.
So you've been drinking with Don
Wow.
Sutherland
Oh,
a
yeah.
lot in your life.
all the time.
Wow.
Wow, that's incredible.
Really pulled the rug
Oh,
over
yeah,
our
you
eyes
got
on
you
that
got
one.
us pretty good there that
Yeah.
time. I gotta
Got
say.
you good. Okay,
sure.
folks, that's it's not a lie. If
If you believe it, I like it.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, we're going to what we won't lie about is to tell you that Erin Davis is going to be coming in here right about now. So I
Right
think
about now. And I
bring
got
her
to
in.
tell you, we should look forward to this because I'll tell you, her book, it really dispels lies. Like she is so
Mm.
honest in this book
Yeah.
that, and you can believe it. So let's bring
Yeah.
her in.
And we're back, and we are so thrilled to be able to welcome Erin Davis to the Vickers Crossing today. Erin, welcome. How are you?
I couldn't be better. They'd take away my health card, or my spot in the vaccination line. No, I'm
That's
just
right.
great,
No, you don't want
gentlemen.
to lose that.
No, thank you very much. Just great.
Are you in the vaccination line?
I am not. I'm far too young for that.
Oh,
But my
well,
husband is.
Oh yeah, well you should be much too young for that. But you said vaccination line. I'm like, oh no, that can't be right.
No, see, what are you wearing? He's wearing a Habs hat.
I
Is
am.
it too late for me to back out of
No,
this?
you can't back out of this now. Now listen, you're living in
Just-
Canucks country now. Don't tell me you're still a Leafs fan.
Oh my gosh. Once you've suffered this long, my poor husband, it's really him, Kevin, because I mean, all of our Stanley Cup memories are in black and white. And he's just, it's so pathetic. I think once you're in there, you
Oh,
you
yeah,
can't
you-
get out.
You know, it's like watching one of those real bad shows on Netflix. Like you're the 5th season in, and there's 8 more to go, and you think, oh well, I got to get through it now.
Do I
Like,
finish
I
it?
can't stop now. Yeah,
That's right.
See it to the
Yeah,
end.
we're like that with Billions. We're there with Billions
Yeah.
right now.
Oh,
We're ready
yeah.
to bail and find something else. Yeah.
Well, look, Rob and I know your pain because we're Detroit Lions fan in football, so we know what that's like.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's for sure. Well, Erin,
Yeah, okay.
they never win either.
well, we're so thrilled to have you today because of the wonderful book that we're going to talk about in your journey there. But also, I got to say, from a personal note, before my life as a vicar, I was a radio announcer. So to have Erin Davis here, and I was saying to the guys before that back in my radio training days at Fanshawe College, we used to listen to air checks from yourself and others
Oh God.
across the country.
can't
I know.
imagine.
Isn't that amazing? So to have you here is just a thrill for me. So big welcome.
Well, thank you, and I am I'm equally pleased and humbled to be joined by you. When I look at your roster of guests and to come, and in the past, like, tell me, how is John Pavlovitz? Is it Pavlovitz or Pavlovitz? But
Pavlovitz.
Pavlovitz. Oh my gosh, I am
amazing.
such a fan of his work and his philosophy and
Yeah.
his whole outlook on spirituality. I love him. So
He's an
thank you for
incredible-
allowing me to join.
Hey, you know what? What Rob actually said to us before we got started was he listened to your sound checks in seminary. So he meant radio broadcast
meant
school,
radio.
but he said seminary.
That's
So
right.
if
Well-
Rob, we want to make sure if Rob is being taught by Erin Davis in seminary, damn it, she's coming on to Vickers Crossing.
But you're not Catholic, right? You can still.
No.
I wasn't.
No.
I wasn't the influence to keep you away from women. That's all
No,
I want
no,
to know.
no, God, no.
Okay,
We have
good.
beautiful women at home, and so
Oh, good.
And the other thing that should be said at the outset is you are a really good friend of Lisa Brandt's, and any person who's a good friend of Lisa Brandt's is good people, if you ask me. So I'm glad to have you here. So let's jump in.
Thank you. Thank
Let's
you.
let's jump into the book a little bit. I just finished reading Mourning Has Broken, and I could not put it down. It's part memoir, part heartbreak. It's just an incredible book. I cried, I laughed, I got angry, I got inspired. I was relieved at times and aggrieved at others, and so it really took me on quite a journey. In 2015, for those who don't know the story, your daughter Lauren died suddenly in her sleep the day after her first Mother's Day. She was 24. Lauren was a radio personality in her own right. She had taken a job on the air in Ottawa, and people knew her from up there. She was a new mom. She was a wife. She was a partner. She was, by all accounts, a force. She was an incredible person. This book of yours is about your journey with grief, but it's also about your journey with this beautiful gift of life that you got to experience in Lauren. She was your daughter, and that is a very particular and special relationship. Early in the book, you shared a note that you gave to Lauren or that you wrote for Lauren before her second birthday. And I think you say in the book you wrote it on hotel stationery, which means you were away at the time. I wonder if you can read
Yeah.
that for us, and then I'll pick up a question on the other side.
Sure, absolutely. I wrote, "My beautiful Lauren, sometimes I wonder how God gave us someone so sweet, such a droplet of perfection in an otherwise dry and flawed existence. Through all our worries and doubts, your face shines, an angel permeating the clouds. And though I know I can't spend the hours with you I want to, I should. You love me with the unconditional innocence and trust that are my gift from you for giving birth. I would do it 100 times more to pay you for the love you've showered upon me. May I always be deserving and you forgiving. Love, Mommy."
Mm. Tell us about Lauren. Help our listeners get a sense of who Lauren was, for those who may not know the story, and not just who she was, but really who she is.
Well, thank you for asking. It's a gift to people who have lost someone when anyone wants to hear about the person they've lost, because it brings them back in
Mhm.
just for a moment. And Lauren, even before she could, almost before she could walk, yeah, she was a slow walker, but fast talker. And before she was 2 years old, I've got her on video singing the American and Canadian national
Wow.
anthems, because she'd been in the back of the car listening to me practice for Blue Jays games. So she was musical, she was smart, she was funny. Oh, and she was so attached to her dad, especially because I was gone in the wee small hours, and Rob was the one who would get her up, get her cleaned up, get her hair braided, get her lunches made, take her to school on the back of his motorcycle when she was older. So they thought in high school she had a really cool boyfriend. Yeah. And excuse me. And Rob and Lauren were very close as she grew up. And then as she became a radio person, a mom, a wife, she and I had this closeness that we had never had before. And so I'd be on my way to work in the morning if we took the longer trip from the cottage rather than across the street. I'd be texting her while she'd be up feeding, and we just
Yeah.
developed these wonderful bonds. She was musical, as I've said. She played several instruments. She was just a natural broadcaster. We tried to talk her out of it. We really did. We said, "Well, hey,
Yeah.
go somewhere
Yeah.
else, try something else, please." But she'd seen how good radio could be to a person instead of, the brutal realities, especially now,
Yeah.
of the business and its many cuts and stuff. So that's kind of in a nutshell who Lauren was: a wonderful mother, a devoted wife, just everything.
Yeah, I got a sense, I mean, having not known her, but reading the book, I have to say to you, I really got a sense of who she was. I felt like um, for me, reading it, it was like, I used to just I found myself going back again to the same thing as, God, I wish I knew this woman. So you really paint a beautiful picture with words. And
Thank you.
and it's a testimony, obviously, to how loved you were by her, and what an influence she had on you. I mean, Rob and I get to see this a lot sometimes, in terms of sometimes we meet people in their death and we've never known them, but they're relatives of people that we know, and we go to do a burial, and it's an interesting perspective because you really only get to see them through the filter of the people that they loved, and the way that they were loved. And sometimes it's just incredibly beautiful, and this is what you've done in this book. So thank you for that.
I was cautioned by my publisher. She said, "You should put in somewhere here that, of course, in hindsight, everything just looks rosier and more wonderful," because I think that she was worried that I was embellishing, or that I was going to put far too bright a shine on the whole thing. So I had to pull it back. I mean, you're a parent, but you don't want to make other parents go, "Oh, please."
No,
So I tried to do it cautiously in the book. Thank you.
no, I take the approach with that's your lived experience is so critically important. So I get the impression that throughout the book, you really drive home the point in a way that grief should be lived. I mean, I use the expression out loud or out in the open.
Mhm.
That it's too often pushed to private and unspoken corners. You reflect at times in the book about people not bringing her up, for instance, when you're having a conversation, to try and avoid it and all that stuff.
Mhm.
But and because of how well known you are, you didn't really sort of have a choice in the beginning anyway. You and Rob had little choice but to do this very publicly. Even in how you were given the horrible news of Lauren's death, your grief was laid bare before others. I wonder if you can share with our listeners the story of what you were doing and how you learned about this and what that was like.
Well, it's almost typical. It's like the book ends because people found out I was pregnant with Lauren when my then partner and I were doing the radio show from the bay window at Yonge and Queen in downtown Toronto in November without heaters. It was brutal.
Wow.
But that's where we announced that coming up in the spring, and we thought it would be April, but she came 3 weeks early in March, that I was expecting, and it was our first child. And so through her life, like I went home, Lauren was in hospital for a week. She came early, so I stayed with her for the week. And then the following day, Monday, Easter Monday, she was born on Palm Sunday. And then on Easter Monday, I was back on the air and Lauren was in my arms. And I say this, I know it's cringeworthy for guys to hear, but
No, I love it.
when Lauren would cry, listeners actually, some told me they lactated. So, I mean,
Oh my
that
gosh.
was, hey, Squirt.
I think I'm letting down right now.
Ooh, good for you. Good for you. That's beer, Kevin.
That's right.
That's probably true.
Yeah. So she grew up before their ears. And then the day that she died, here's where we were. We were in a ballroom in Jamaica. Twice a year, our station would take listeners away for a trip. And so there were about 80 sleepy listeners. They're on their vacation, and bless them, hungover and everything else. They're there to actually watch a radio show at that hour. And so we're ready to set up. We were starting a little later at 6 a.m. And Rob was called away from the table where he had set up my computer, made sure I was attached to the printer, got my coffee and stuff. He was called away by our promotions representative and told there was a call in the lobby, and she didn't quite get the last name. So Rob went, and I thought, oh dear, what's happened to one of the in-laws? And then after about 10 minutes, it's now 10 to 6, there's no Rob. So I wandered through the ballroom, hi to everybody on the way out. And there was Rob in the darkened lobby of the hotel. It's an open concept lobby. It's quiet. You can only hear tree frogs. There's morning dew on the clean tile floors. And he's slumped over in the bench across from front desk. And I said, what is it? And I started to name names of people that we knew. And he said, no, it's Lauren. She died in her sleep. And as I say in the book, I can't really remember what happened next. Writing the book, I had to ask him, what did I do? What did I say? He tells me that I cried out, no. But then the echoes of the lobby reminded me, everybody's sleeping, be quiet. And they offered us a little space where the luggage is kept and stuff to go back there. But I wasn't going to go back there. I went back to the lobby, and then I made my way back into the ballroom, told our producer, Ian, like yours, I said to Ian, well, Lauren's dead. And he swore at me because, we have a pretty twisted sense of humor, but Ian was at Lauren's christening.
Right.
And he said, don't even joke about something like that. And then I sat down and I told my partner, Mike, that Lauren died in her sleep. And he responded, what? And that's what everybody responded, because it didn't make sense. A healthy, happy 24-year-old, one day after Mother's Day, 7-month-old baby. None of it made any sense. And so I sat down, believe it or not, guys, ready to do the show. And it sounds crazy, but there's a couple of things. The amazing Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. I'm sure you and your listeners are familiar with it. An abnormal reaction to an abnormal situation is normal behavior. I needed to hold tight to where my world made sense. Even 20 minutes ago, it had made sense. And radio had always rescued me, no matter what was going on in my life, whether I was drinking at night or whether my mom had just died, whatever was happening, radio was the place where things made sense and I had a job to do and I could put everything aside. So in my mind, that's what I had to do. But everybody else said, no, we're packing up. We're getting you back to your room. And then the flights were arranged for very shortly thereafter. So the people in the ballroom didn't know, I think, until after we'd left. Poor Jackie, the girl who delivered the news to us and to them. It was just, and she was just like this much pregnant too. But
oh, wow.
So anyway, we were like a family. And that's where the support and the healing began, really, was with that trip. It's where it all fell apart and began to come together, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, obviously the show would have gone on and they would have informed the listeners.
Yeah, they let people back in Toronto know that there was technical difficulties,
Right.
and that was honestly, it had happened in Jamaica a few years ago when a car went off the road, hit a tree, took down our lines, and killed our broadcast for 2 days. The guy was
Oh my
fine,
gosh.
but yeah, so that was a believable mistake,
Right.
or a believable misrepresentation, but. Yeah, until a little while later when my boss came on the air in Toronto and told them what had happened.
Right.
Then then stuff became real, as it
Yeah.
were.
And the public then, I mean, you relate that, you know, you worry sometimes that that radio can be real devastating to people, but your listeners became very important to you in that after that time.
Well, the stories that I was hearing, Kevin, like from a woman who pulled over her car when she heard the news to cry, and someone else pulled over to see if she was okay, and they cried in each other's arms.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this was a girl who had been part of their lives too, because she'd been on the radio with us through the years, and people would hear me talking about Lauren just as a parent, like, what would you do in this situation? And she dyed her hair pink when we were away, and we made her dye it back. Are we the worst parents? You know, all of these little things, not big things like so many parents go through, but they were things that, because we had been with them in their most vulnerable times, literally naked in the morning,
Right.
they took us to their hearts, and that is the greatest gift that a radio person can know, as you would know as well,
Mm-hmm.
Rob. That when somebody says, "I feel like I know you,"
Yeah.
that is like gold.
It is.
And so the gold, though, was coming our way in that support from listeners who wrapped their arms around us like a big community, a church community, an extended family.
Right.
It was remarkable and so healing.
Right. Definitely. Yeah. And that's the beauty of the medium too, like you say, is to have those personal connections with people that you don't know per se, but know you, and in a tragedy like you went through, to have that outpouring, I'm sure was incredibly helpful and life-giving for you. So, and one of the things about Erin too is, as you've already discovered, folks, by listening, that she's honest and very vulnerable, and that shows up in the writing of the book too. And I'm so thankful that you wrote this. And I really found it heartwarming. I was quoting some of it to my wife, and she was tearing up, because as a mom,
Oh,
her heart is going out as well. But um, one of the things about this, though, is that it's such an unnatural order of events for parents to have to bury their children. I mean, and as clergy, as priests, Kevin and I have been in those situations, and that grief is unmatched by really anything else, I think, personally, for me, that I can
I
imagine
agree.
doing this work. And one of the things that we observe, sadly, is sometimes parents, and even extensions, grandmas, grandpas, feeling responsible somehow. The death of a child can lead to feelings of guilt, which even complicate the grief a little more. And if I could, I just wanted to read one little part of the book about your experience of that, Erin. You write, "For months after our daughter's heart stopped beating, I would awaken from a restless night's sleep, and I would look at the clock, wondering, is this the time she died? It was as though I felt I should have known somehow that our daughter was leaving this earthly realm at the exact time that she did. How could I have slept through the tearing away of a part of myself from this life? How could any mother? How did my heart not stop too? I wondered again and again, and I asked myself and the universe how my own life could have come to what seemed like such a screeching halt without my even stirring in my bed. I was her mother. I should have felt it happening. I was there when her life began, and I wasn't with her when it ended. I didn't even know."
yeah.
Incredible. Can you talk a little more about that sense of guilt in that moment, or perhaps at other times that you felt? And have you heard this from other parents who have lost children? Because I'm sure they've reached out to you and you've spoken to others as well.
Oh, yeah. Every week I get an email from
I bet.
someone who is in the depths of loss or
Mm,
grief or has just read the book. And it's an honor for me. And and the thing that I hold on to is my own advice, not to dive into the platitudes,
Mhm.
and we'll get to those. But there is so much guilt that is associated, especially if a child dies by suicide or
Mhm.
something related to mental illness, where we all think that we're the mothers or fathers, we should have been able to help them. We retried. With me and with Lauren was trying so hard to breastfeed Colin. She and this we do believe was linked to her death. She had to give birth by cesarean because when she started into labor, they noticed right away the baby was in trouble. So from the jump, she felt like, oh, I didn't go through the 18 hours of labor. Am I a real mom? And Lauren wasn't vapid. I make her sound like that, but the internet will climb on and pile on and say, oh, I did this and I did it without drugs and I want to do it again in the barn. Barn. Whatever. Like, okay, I'm all for the drugs. Sign me up. In fact, that was the first thing
Give me the shot.
That's
right. First thing I asked my doctor when I found out I was pregnant at long last, I said, when's the cesarean? So there we go. It's like a nail appointment, right?
Oh, that's good.
So with Lauren, she already felt like she had missed part of the experience of motherhood and was going to make sure. She gave up everything when she was pregnant. She was living life as perfectly as she could to make sure her baby had the best chance. So when she had difficulty breastfeeding, which I also did, and my mother and her mother, she tried everything. And she would cry when she would come back from baby weighing. And she just had so much turmoil. So she was trying all the natural stuff. And then she was put on Motilium, which is also known as domperidone, which is a drug that was started as a GI, a gastrointestinal drug, and they found it was making elderly men lactate. For once, I wasn't to blame for this.
Right.
So they decided this drug, hey, look at this side effect, and now it's prescribed with caution in the UK, banned in the US, and given out, as I say in the book, like cheese samples at Costco on Sunday in the before times. So this is our thing. If you or your child have any heart issues or even suspect or don't suspect, get your heart tested before going on this drug to help you breastfeed. Or it can jump in the middle of a slow heartbeat and stop it. Coroner wasn't able to determine that 100%, but he was very, very suspicious, and any other health expert coroner that we've spoken to echoed that sentiment. So my guilt is assuaged only because I can get this message out. I'm not going to fight the breastfeeding gurus or the pharmaceutical companies, because I don't have that kind of scratch. Don't want to lose everything in our lives. But that's our message. So my guilt is that I wasn't stronger in telling her, stop, please just go to formula. Fed is best. And she wouldn't have listened anyway.
No, I mean,
that's my girl.
And that pressure that you talk about in terms of, everybody's an expert on the internet nowadays, right?
Oh God, yeah.
So I mean, unless she was on like every other 24-year-old, she would have scanned the internet to see everybody's advice about. Not that she would have gone looking for it, but people would have given it to her whether she asked or not.
Yeah, and she was well read on it as well. And one of them was the breastfeeding guru, who is so high on this drug. Pardon the pun.
Yeah.
One of the things you talk about in the book, Erin, is this idea of that you are members of a club with dues. And you're right that we are members of a club with dues so high you never ever want to pay them. But now we're members for life, and we found ourselves invited to join an especially elite chapter of the club, the one for parents who have lost their only child. And later in the book, when you write about meeting people in this new community, how difficult it is to be in a club for which there really is no name, but because of this shared experience, you're part of this. And you're right. If you lose a husband, you're a widow. If you lose your wife, you become a widower. When your father dies, you're fatherless. When both parents die, you become an orphan. So why isn't there a word for parents who have lost a child? I'm sure that these words you've written resonate with parents who are trying to put the pieces of their life back together after the death of a child. Can you say more about that experience at all?
I can. As a matter of fact, since I wrote the book, there has been a term that has come up, and I found someone had referred to themselves as this, and I found an NPR article on it. The article begins with Lady Bird Johnson, Lyndon Johnson's wife. When she was left and he died, someone called her a widow. And she said, I'm not a widow, because widow is Sanskrit for empty. And she said, I'm not empty, I'm just without him. And so there is a word, and I don't quite know the origins of it yet, because it's not part of the etymology yet of grief, but it's called viloma, Vilomah, viloma. And that is, there is a Chinese phrase that is gray, white hair, berries, dark. And that kind of puts it all into a picture as well. But this is the term for, we're kind of lost. I mean, and you don't, the last thing you want to do is say, hey, I want a title too. Where is my day on the calendar for, getting flowers or a fruit basket?
Right.
Go ahead, Rob. Sorry.
No, I was going to say, is that too helpful in the sense of having people understand what this is and having it talked about more? Because when we say widow or widower or whatever, we could connect with that and understand it. But to have some kind of a word or something to connect that to the death of a child and be able to even open doors to conversation because of that, is that something that can be helpful?
Well, that is a good question, Rob. And the question too is, how far do you want that door open, and to whom?
Right.
I almost felt when Lauren died, like I wanted to shave my head or render my clothes or do any of the myriad things that people in different faiths do to show that they are in mourning. I did wear black for an awfully long time, but that's just because it was reflecting how I felt.
Right.
The question that is most vexing is, how many kids do you have? Or do you have children? And in that flash of a second, you have to decide, do I want to tell this person at the grocery checkout line at Sobeys, we had a daughter and she died? Or do I want to say, we have a daughter, or we had a daughter, or we have no children? And is that like denying Christ and saying, sorry, never existed, let's move on. Right. So there's all of this whole ball of wax, this hot, searing wax that you're bouncing around in your head in a split second at the grocery store.
Right.
Yeah. So I don't know. Should there be a pin? And do we want people to know? That's a good question.
Yeah. And it's where you are at the moment too, right? I'm sure it's where you are in that when it's asked, right? Yeah.
And good manners is not making the other person feel uncomfortable. That's at a dinner table or in life in general. And the last thing I want to do is say, yes, we had a daughter, but she died. And then they're like, oh my God, I'm so sorry I asked. So it's just, it's all very prickly.
It is very prickly. And I mean, you're right about that, about, the meeting people and when you moved out west and, what do I say? And like you said, are you setting people off? Are you making people feel bad? We had Father James Martin on here a couple of weeks back, and we were talking about the business of prayer and so on, and what people say, and we'll come to that in a second. But one of the things I shared with him was, I have a nephew who lost two little girls, twin girls, to a disease called Batten's disease. And so we did two funerals in 1 year, one in January and one in December. And they were 7 when they died, and in their 7th year. And again, my sister recounts the story of picking up their older sister, 13 months older than the twin girls, was a beautiful, great niece of mine named Leah. And Leah had met a new school friend, and she was driving her home, and these are little kids, right? And so the little girl looks to Leah and says, do you have brothers and sisters? And now this is an 8-year-old.
Sure.
Right. And so now there's that question. And so she looked into the rearview mirror from the back seat to make eye contact with my sister, her grandmother, as if to say, what do I say? What do I say to my new 8-year-old little friend?
Right.
And Helen nodded and she said, you can tell her. And she said, I have a sister and she's in heaven. I have 2 sisters and they're in heaven, Andrea and Becky. And unlike adults, because I think adults, we overcomplicate it and get all the new friend said, well, what happened? And then she said, well, they died, and they had a little chat about it, and then they moved on. It was, but we get sort of all bent out of shape in a way. I mean, it's the thing about not wanting to talk about things out in the open, I think.
Well, part of it is too, and I think that this goes back to when we used to whisper about she's got cancer.
I know.
Right.
If you say it out loud, somebody else might catch it. And I think that it's part of it is we don't want to hear that this stuff happens to
That's
somebody
right.
who looks so completely normal. Well, if I could pass for that today,
You
whatever.
always did. But
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of denial, like you're saying, though, right? It's if you don't say it, it's not real somehow. And,
Right.
like my mother had to
Right.
whisper words. It was cancer, divorced was a
Right.
whisper word. Roman Catholic was another one. And so-
Thanks a lot.
yeah, I'm sorry, but I married. If it's any consolation, I married a Roman Catholic who's a chaplain in the Navy for the Roman Catholic Church and a chaplain in an all-Catholic girls' university. So,
Are you bragging or complaining?
I'm doing both. And so it's funny that my mother whispered Roman Catholic, and here I am. And the other
Oh,
one,
I know.
and the other one she would say is, "He's gay."
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Say that. Yeah.
Anyway, look, let's get on to the stupidity if we can for a second, because
What, this wasn't?
this particular group of people, we not you, but the three of us, we're big on stupidity. In fact, yesterday Theo Fleury tweeted that I was a part of the Stupidism Club, is what he said.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
I challenged some of his xenophobic
Put it on your
ideas,
resume.
and he didn't like it. So he said I was a part of the Stupidism. I said, that's pretty
Oh,
good.
come on.
Stupidism, Theo. Way to go.
Theo can stand for so much more in our society. He's got to elevate his voice.
It's right, as he's got so much good to say. That's what I was
Oh
trying to
my
get
gosh.
to.
The
Anyway,
healing.
off topic. So let's
Yes.
discuss those stupid things that people say. And we saw this with the girls when they died. I mean, the things that people would say were outrageous. Now, I have to say here that when you write about this with a clarity about how painful it is and how crushing these comments can be, while at the same time displaying incredible compassion for those who are searching for words in the midst of being confronted with another's unimaginable circumstances. I mean, you're probably kinder to those folks than I am. We've heard them all, Rob and I. I mean, God needed another angel. It's all a part of God's plan, yada, yada, yada. Sadly, a lot of it comes from people who purport to follow Jesus, which
Of course.
is alarming for those of us who work in the church, which is one of the reasons why your story is so compelling to me, because, I mean, you're not somebody immersed in the church anymore, but you were, all those listeners, many of them are people of faith from various faiths and traditions. When people say that sort of stuff, it just really crushes people. And you tell a story about, I mean, the most immediate one was right after you heard this news, one of the hotel staff, the morning you learned of Lauren's death. Can you share that story and talk a little bit about this subject?
Oh, yeah, I can. As we were making our way back to the hotel room in a blur, and it was dark, and we were being as quiet as we could because guests were sleeping. We had this arrangement usually at resorts we stayed at, where housekeeping would come in and do our rooms while we were doing the show, so we could go back and then nap and then get up and play and socialize with the listeners for the rest of the day and not have to worry about scheduling and naps because they were so important. But yes, and so we came into the room and she was there, or just outside the room. I said, "We're not going to be needing you today." And I couldn't even believe the words coming out of my mouth. I said, "Because we have to go home. Our daughter has died." And she was, oh, God is great. God is great. And wow.
Yeah.
There's so many things happened in that moment. And all I could say was, well, I can't agree with you right now, and left it at that, which in retrospect was probably not the kindest thing for me to say. I probably should have said thank you and just gone on our way, because I know where she was coming from. I blindsided her. She's just doing her thing, having her morning, thinking about her day. And I blindsided her with this. And I didn't expect a Hallmark card, nor should I have.
Yeah.
When you blindside someone, and that includes either sharing your immediate grief or going into a ladies' room and somebody sees you and recognizes you, they will say the first thing that comes to mind, like, "You're much taller than I expected." "Oh, you're prettier than you are on TV." Oh, that's always nice. Or that's the original backhanded compliment.
Yeah.
Or, just whatever comes to mind. So I do understand that. And I have understood that for my whole career, fortunately for me. But it's the people who have time to think about it. Like my friend Anita, her neighbor is going through just a horrific time with a daughter who's been diagnosed with all kinds of dreadful things. And I was telling Anita, I want to talk with Susan. I want to say the right words. And she said, oh, don't you just love God cried first?
Oh,
Yeah.
Have you
Yeah.
ever heard this, guys? God cried
Yeah.
first?
Heard it all.
Yeah.
What movie is that from? Oh my gosh. Oh yes, this all being sentient,
This God.
person being deity said, oh, this is awful. I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to kill
I'm
your
just gonna have
kid.
to kill your kid.
Yeah.
Sorry about this. This is a part of the job I hate.
Yeah. It's gonna hurt me more than it's gonna hurt you.
That's right. Get ready, because here it comes, and there she goes.
What?
Give me a break.
I mean, that God is an asshole.
Amen. Not a stupidism.
If that is God, I check out. I'm done. I tap out. I got better work to do than this. And to me, it's a bit funny in a way, because if you pick up our scriptures and you read the stories, then you come to understand that the people who wrote them really understood how to lament. My God, why have you forsaken me? The psalmist writes in Psalm 22. Jesus praying in the garden. Take this away from me. I don't want this. This is not what I want. Like these are not some mamby-pamby. Oh God, you're so special. Just torture me for the love of Jesus. I mean, come on. Oh, it's just crazy.
I am going to lift that and use it, Kevin. I'm going to say, listen to this guy.
Yeah.
Okay, so what would Jesus do? Tell me what you tell me as men of faith. What would you have people say? What do you say?
Well, it's not about what I say. I try to tell people it's about what you do. So show up. The truth of the matter is that there are no words except lament to address what people are going through. So what I try and do, and I, like everybody else, have had my moments before I ever came into those experiences. We all sort of learn from experience. So I'm like you. I get it. I get where people are coming from. But I pulled a woman away from a visitation for Becky when she was, and it was an elderly woman in a small community in Newfoundland who came in and said one of these stupid things. And I took her by the hand and we went into the lobby. I said, do you love God? And she said, yes. I said, if you love God, I said, let's trust God to look after this. Okay. And when you come to visit somebody, all you need to say, if anything, is I'm sorry. I love you. And perhaps give a hug. That's it.
That's it.
You don't need to explain what God is up to, because you don't know.
Right.
I don't know, and you don't know.
Exactly.
So
Just
let's
telling them
let's
you're
not-
there it's I just think back to my dad dying. The only thing I ever remember people saying to me that I think about this day is, "Hey man, I'm here for you. I love you."
Yeah, and then actually
Done.
being there.
And
actually showing up. Yep, showing up.
Yeah,
And
3
calling
weeks
or-
later
yep.
when the flowers are all dead
Yeah.
and the
Right.
casseroles
Exactly.
have stopped coming
Yeah.
and that sort of thing. Call, check in, be there.
Yeah, be
Yes,
present.
I love that, Kevin. What you said, for the love of God, shut up, is kind of what I heard there.
If you love God, just shut up. Like, you don't need to say it. And then she looked at me and she said, "You're not a believer, are you?" I said, "I am a believer."
Oh.
And she said, she said, "What church do you go to?" I said, "I'm a priest, in fact." "Oh, well, you're not a very good one." And off out the door she went. So, like that's all a part of this, right? So it's part of what we have to get challenged in the church. Now, you talk about another way that people twist this phrase in a way is with the "at least" comments. This is less about laying it all on God, who's this torturous sort of thing, but this
Puppet
is now
master.
puppet master. Yes, that's the word I was looking for. So these are people who want to tell you how good you got it now that your daughter is dead. At least. So
And
talk
this
to
is
us
human
about at
nature.
least.
This is human nature. This is the Pollyanna, and I am so guilty of this, trying to always find the silver lining. I liken it to the story of the little kid who keeps digging and digging and digging through the pile of horse manure because there's got to be a pony in there somewhere. This has always been my mantra. When you get up at stupid o'clock in the morning and the crack is stupid, every day you have to find the bright spot in order to haul your butt out of bed every day. And so that's always been my job. But the at least are taking it to the extreme. Well, at least she didn't suffer.
Right.
At least you have a husband. At least she left you a grandson. At least. And yes, those are all valid and true and things for which we are grateful, but those are our words to say. You don't get to mitigate, even if
Right.
someone is 98. Well, Prince Philip, no, I won't use him because he's still alive, at least as of this recording, but you've got an 88-year-old. My dad is 88. Oh, and doing well. Please, puppet master.
Yeah. Don't torture Erin's dad, God.
That's right. She's been through enough.
She's had enough of this. Don't go smiting anybody today.
Oh, I hate smiting. Is it smiting Saturday or smiting Tuesday? I prefer Taco Tuesday.
Nobody shall be smote today.
Oh, thank you. This is a no smoking zone.
Smoke free.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, if my dad was to pass, there would be a lot of at least, like, oh, at least he lived for 88 years. At least he found a girlfriend. Bitch. No, not at all. She's not nagging him every day about the fact that we took away his car keys at all.
At all.
But anyway, 88, my dad. Wow. Anyway, but if something were to happen to him, it would be up to us to have the at least and to be so grateful and to know that he and mom are dancing to Moonlight Serenade again.
Yeah.
And yeah, the afterlife is a whole nother story here because we've got our 6-year-old grandson has learned as a family day about his tummy mummy and Lauren's story. So you're talking about your grandniece in the back seat and how but that's another podcast.
Oh, there's a whole thing there, isn't there?
That's right. We go on and on with that.
There's a lot there.
Totally.
But you know, I'm glad we're kind of moving into this because we've been laughing and sharing with each other. And you're right quite a bit in the book about gratitude and joy in remembering Lauren. This is not just all about the grief and the pain, which it is obviously, but even in
who would want to read that, Rob? Yeah. Really? Who
needs Whoever advised you, they gave you good advice. I mean, come out of
advice.
Thank you.
But you do find that, and this is a quote from the book I want to share with our listeners. And you're right. Our job is to keep going, to remember and hold close our hope that our souls will be together again one day, and to reflect with joy and love and laughter on the times that we had, the three of us, in those golden 24 years. To be grateful that we have no regrets and can say we were the best parents we could be, with room for improvement, of course.
Always.
That we raised an amazing human being, and that we have to go forward in a way that honors her spirit and honors her memory. I just love that. And I was thinking that of Dietrich Bonhoeffer, German pastor who was killed in the Nazi death camps. His writings while he was in prison have become incredibly important, pastorally, certainly. And he wrote about grief. And I wanted to share a bit of a quote with you. So if you just bear with me, and then we can maybe talk about it on the other side. Bonhoeffer wrote, "There is nothing that can replace the absence of someone dear to us, and one should not even attempt to do so. One must simply hold out and endure it. At first, that sounds very hard, but at the same time, it is also great comfort. For to the extent the emptiness truly remains unfilled, one remains connected to the other person through it. It is wrong to say that God fills the emptiness. God in no way fills it, but much more leaves it precisely unfilled, and thus helps us preserve, even in pain, the authentic relationship. Furthermore, the more beautiful and full the remembrances, the more difficult the separation. But gratitude transforms the torment of memory into silent joy. One bears what was lovely in the past, not as a thorn, but as a precious gift deep within, a hidden treasure of which one can always be certain."
Wow.
So yeah, wonderful words, huh?
Yeah, thank you. Because Lauren's birthday is March 24th, and I think I'm going to post that as my as my journal that day. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah.
It sort of I see now where one of my favorite sayings about this, the writer Anne Lamott.
Yeah.
Who she says that, when you lose someone you love, your heart will be broken and it will never be the same. And that is the bad news, but it's also the good news.
That's right.
Because, and then she says it much more eloquently than I, but the ending of it is that you will dance again with a limp. Right. And that is exactly what I feel that we're doing, Rob and I. We are dancing with a limp, and that is so many of us now. And that's why I'm continuing to give keynote addresses and that sort of thing to all kinds of different groups, because grief and mourning are what people have been going through. And again, John Pavlovitz said this,
Yeah.
that we are all mourning in the past year, our hopes, our
Yes.
dreams, our canceled plans, and of course, actual deaths.
Yes.
And so we've all had to adjust our expectations, to deal with the disappointments, and to find a way, without being that kid in the pile of manure, to
Right.
move on and to find something to hope for, even if it is just the next dark and rich cup of coffee, or the sunrise, or the Zoom call, or the phone call, whatever it is. Set your sight on that, because
Right.
that in the moment is what matters.
Exactly. And we as a culture we don't do grief. We don't do mourning. We do everything we can to, it's not, I'm not saying that we should be looking for it, but when it happens, it's part of our human experience. And the thing is, as Bonhoeffer points to there, it can be transformed. Like the torment can be transformed.
Sure.
And so to have the opportunity to enter into that with others is a great gift too.
It is. It opens you up to so much more compassion.
Mhm.
And I used to think I was an empathetic and compassionate person. I hope that I was. But once you have been taken down and absolutely crushed, the pieces you pull back together allow that weakness, that vulnerability, to
Right.
recognize it in other people, to beg them to be vulnerable too, so that if they put their arms out to you, you're ready for them.
Right.
That's right.
And
Right.
that was just the most important thing to us, was recognizing that in not just those who are bereaved, but those who are addicted, those who are, just the myriad challenges that everyday life brings to us in everyone's lives. It just opens you up to so much more empathy and compassion.
Yeah,
I'm so
amen.
grateful for that.
That's so true.
Well, amen, amen. I just want to say that, I mean, you are dancing, you and Rob, and you're dancing beautifully, limp and all. But
Yeah.
he's not getting any younger, to be fair. But
True.
but
It's true.
the dancing is so critical. And you're right about this past year. I mean, Rob and I have tended to deaths that weren't connected to COVID, even. For whom the regular process of gathering and being embraced and having
Right.
people show up,
Yeah, it's not there.
it's not there, and it's been really hard. We're all grieving a lot, and it is, I won't say easy, but it comes naturally to fall into despair about that. And so we need voices like yours. This is what makes your work so critically important, and your speaking engagements you're making. If I could encourage people to go check out erindavis.com, right? It's .com.
It is.
And read her daily journal, and read and listen to the vlogs, the video diaries. Incredible work you're doing. And I just know, like, it's another resource for me. Like, I feel so gifted. And when I saw, that Lisa was connected to you, I'm like, why haven't I talked to Erin Davis? Because and now I've delved so much further in. It's another resource I can put in people's hands. I can put people in front of a computer and say, listen, I need you to go listen to Erin. This is going to help you.
Thank you.
Big time.
As you know, how important that is, right? Like, you've had others who've done that for you.
Oh gosh, yeah. Jan Arden, for example, she encouraged me from the get-go, just from afar. I started writing a journal because of her. March 20th, 2003. This little sucker's been going for 18 years.
Yeah.
And it saved my career when I was let go later that year, and people knew where to find me.
Right.
And then it became this hub for anyone who wanted to talk to me about grief or whatever's going on in their lives. I don't get into the politics, at least not Canadian politics, because I haven't got time for the nameless pain.
Yes.
And try and keep above the fray.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Oh, it is. I get mired down in it, I must confess. Everybody knows, but it's just important work that you're doing. And people have different approaches, spiritually, religiously, whatever else. We're an open lot here. We're, you've probably seen, the tagline is, we talk about where faith intersects with the public square. And so the question of how we who follow along the way of Jesus can live that better, for us, that means finding exemplars, not just within the church, but people in the community who are doing that. You're one of those exemplars, Erin. And so it's important that we hold that work up. And I want to say too, before we shift off of the book, because producer Ian wants to talk about radio. Okay.
Yay.
So because he's like, he's 20 years old, or he will be soon. When is your birthday? It's coming up.
It's the same day as Rob's.
Oh yeah, right. So which is March
29th.
29th.
Coming up.
So
Yep.
Our producer Ian is March 28th.
see,
Oh,
producer
there
Ian
you
said
go.
Listen.
it was a good time for
Darn.
producer Ian. There
Close.
must have been something to do with the sex back 9 months earlier.
God,
but
the reproducers.
what the hell was I
Wow.
going to say? Oh, what I was going to say was there's more in this book too, and I just want to I want to acknowledge that because this is dropping on St. Patrick's Day, and so we have a former St. Patrick's Day Grand Marshal here in Erin. And I want to just give a shout out to everybody that there's a lot in this book about living with addiction, overcoming addiction, being strong in the midst of that as well. And we couldn't cover all of that today, but I just want to point out that there's a lot in here for people. And I couldn't encourage you enough to pick up the book, Mourning Has Broken. Now,
Kevin, I have to say before you go into Ian here, and that sounded all wrong, but on we go. It's not wrong
it
per
gets us
se.
priest in a lot of trouble.
Oh, geez, sorry. No, there's an Erin Davis who is a Christian author and an
I saw that.
evangelist. And I've been, even just last night, I got an email meant for her. And I said, well, these are lovely words. I hope that you find the other
Yeah.
Erin Davis. That's not me.
Okay.
And also, when the book was written, afterward, I went into rehab. So there is another book there. I would call it The Mourning After.
Yeah.
But HarperCollins said, no, once you've written one memoir, people think they've read it all. So anybody can write to me anytime. I won't give you advice. I'll just tell you what I did and what worked for me in sobriety, which is coming up on 2 years.
Oh, good for
June
you.
1st, or
Congratulations.
June 30th.
That's for
yeah,
you.
so
That's wonderful.
Thanks.
And
Of course,
I-
after this podcast, I may change my mind. but
Well,
Yeah,
that's-
that's right. Yeah.
I can tell you what I'm doing when we're done.
Yeah.
But no, you, I mean, on a serious note, you have, again, with honesty and vulnerability and integrity, talked about the ways you've overcome and the ways you've been struggling with that, and your willingness to continue to engage that work. Again, there might be another Erin Davis who's an evangelist, but I would argue she's not doing the same critical work. You're evangelizing in your own way, and I appreciate that. So
Thank you.
over to Ian, who wants to talk
Yes.
radio, because it happens to
Go,
be
Ian,
we
go.
have a broadcast hall of fame, radio,
Yeah.
TV, morning
Yeah.
show host. Like, just you've done it all, Aaron.
Yeah.
I
bounce
was
around-
waiting for when that person comes on. Jeez. Okay. Yes, go
from
on.
author to radio host, like everything. I was just super interested in sort of the how you came to be in radio, right? You bounced around so many different radio stations and programs and stuff, and there must have been some like difficulties and highlights from working in radio, and I wanted to know if you could touch upon that and kind of where you started in radio and how you got there.
Well, thank you for asking. When I was in my high school years, radio for girls was really not a thing. The only ones were on the local station reading recipes. They were older women or the Stork Report who'd had a baby and that sort of thing. But at night, I would go to bed listening to Barbara Frum and Mary Lou Finley on a CBC show, which continues, called As It Happens. And I would get so nervous listening to them ask the tough questions of these powerful men. So in my mind, those seeds began. Also, I sang with my grandfather's orchestra, so I was comfortable in front of a microphone. I was always grabbing my dad's dictaphone so that I could record and do interviews with people. I loved to read aloud in class. So the pieces were always there. Then, if you want to call it divine guidance, on my way out of my room one day in grade 13, it was a thing. And it wasn't just for those of us who were, hard of thinking. I read a little prayer on my billboard called The Prayer to Know One's Calling that one of the nuns had given us all. And I read it on my way out the door. I don't know why, but I got to this school for community, for Careers Day. And the two I had signed up to listen to speak were already booked. So I went and listened to the professor from the local college, Loyalist in Belleville, talk about radio. As I sat there, Ian, I felt like I'd been hit by lightning. I knew this was what I had to do. So I got right into it. 2 months into it, I had a part-time job. 1 year into it, I had a full-time job. My second year of college and playing piano in a French restaurant at night to pay the rent.
Wow.
So it was
Nice.
busy. And then Ottawa, Windsor, Toronto, the end.
AM 800, AM 800.
Yes, I was at CKLW
That was a
when
big deal in the day.
It was, and that was before I was there. I was there for its death throes, unfortunately.
Uh-oh.
But it pushed me out the door to go to Toronto, worked at an all news station, met my husband, and then on to CHFI. So it has been a long career and a rewarding one. Challenges along the way. Man, I'm sorry, but when I was from the beginning, I was called the C word at CKLW because I wasn't sort of fitting into what they thought I was going to be for morning show co-host, which was the first in the Detroit market. They thought I was going to be a giggler, and I was the one who was coming up with lines, and that was never my role. It was never to be the laugh track and the big funny man.
Yeah.
So I didn't have the chest for it. So there was that guy, and then there were co-hosts along the way who had no idea what to do with me, and I was sort of shunted to the side, and they were going to come in and save the show, and eventually they were all left behind. And then I found a really great partner in Don Daynard, with whom I was with for 11 years. He retired. There was an interim. Bob McGee didn't quite work. There was no trust. And then Mike Cooper. So the hardest things were me listening to the outside voices, not having support from my bosses until the last one, Julie Adam, and just letting it all get to me. And it did in many ways.
Yeah. That's great. Good. Well, I know you paved the way for many, Erin. There's a lot of female broadcasters and working in radio and television, and looking up to you over the years, and listening to you. I remember listening to Detroit radio when I lived in Windsor with the covers pulled over my head and listening to Alan Allman and all that in the middle of the night.
Alan Allman, the night something,
with Pillow
not
Talk.
Stalker, but Pillow Talk.
Pillow Talk. Rob was
my God,
listening to some guy giving him Pillow Talk.
Pillow Talk. Talk.
Listen, if you weren't getting laid listening to Alan Allman, you were doing it all
You weren't
wrong.
getting laid.
Wasn't happening.
That's you, Rob, right? Okay.
That's true.
Okay.
That's true.
No,
Why the pillows were over his head. He was like in the Hall of Shame. Just in case you thought I was the Christian Erin Davis.
Yeah,
I throw that in.
She's not. Okay, she's not. Thanks be to Jesus. So here's the thing. Ian is at Music Industry Arts at Fanshawe.
Yeah.
He's an incredible singer-songwriter in his own right. You've seen a lot of people come and go, Erin, in being in radio. What would you say to this young upstart guy here?
Oh gosh, I wish that I knew.
Yeah.
You know what? Now it's a completely different world, Ian, because it used to be when people would send their, files or CDs or whatever, it would be like, well, okay, here's the hierarchy. It has to go through the music label. They bring it in. There's a big meeting. Cigars were probably smoked back in the day. Yeah. And this kid's got it. Yeah. That's the way it used to be. Now, of course, you have to get all of social media at your fingertips, literally. And that's how it happens, right? I mean, you watched the Grammys the other night, and how many of these artists really got started on TikTok or any of the other available platforms. Yeah, the world is right there in whatever room. Pick your underwear up off the floor, but whatever room you're recording.
Yeah.
That was the mom. Sorry.
Call Molly Maid London today, folks. One of our sponsors.
That's right. That's right. One of your sponsors. Right.
There's so much power of your own computer. Like that's what it is now.
God, yes.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
For better or worse, you can get canceled fast if somebody, on The Bachelor finds that you were at a party 4 years ago.
That's the idea right there.
But if you really, God, if you believe, and there's. I wish that there was a magic bullet or a trick or anything that I could say to you, Ian, but that is just get your stuff out there and make sure everybody knows about it, however you can, and always from the heart, because what comes from the heart goes to the heart. And put the title in the first. How many lines? What's that old saw about hit songs?
Yeah,
I don't know.
First 30 seconds, and
that's
it.
There you go.
Yeah,
exactly. So
Baby shark. See how it works? I'm not even kidding.
Yeah.
So it bears saying then that for anybody listening, go to iTunes, go to Spotify,
There we
go
go.
to those places and search for Somebody's Journal, right, Ian? And tell us the titles of these beautiful songs you've written.
Someone's journal.
Someone's Journal. Sorry, Someone's Journal.
Yeah, that's totally okay. I have 5 songs. One is an arrangement of Danny Boy that I did in my room, and then I have 4 originals called Summer Rain, Lighthouse, Goodbye to Me, and End of an Era. End of an Era. Yes, shameless self promotion.
No, it's on a continuous.
Well,
Yeah.
if this thing's going up on March 17th, if you as producer don't put your singing on either the beginning or the end of it, you're missing a great opportunity.
Big time,
That's
big
right.
time.
Yeah,
Take
producer.
it, yeah, take
And
it
so
from
this,
Erin.
this show should go out with a piece of music from that EP.
For sure. Yeah.
And
so.
our original theme music, Coming and Going, is written and performed by
Yeah.
Ian as well.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, hey, Erin, we can't thank you enough for spending the time with us today and giving us this time, giving us the gift of your book and sharing everything you've done. As Kevin said, you're right there in the faith in the public square is exactly what you're doing, and as a resource, as Kevin mentioned, for ourselves as well. It's been a great gift to be able to have the book and mostly to have you with us today. So thanks for sharing your time. We appreciate it.
Oh, I'm just so honored. Thank you for wanting to talk to me. I was a little bit nervous coming into this because I thought I am so not in their wheelhouse. I am a woman of faith, but not of religion, and I believe that it's in your heart.
Yeah.
What you do, walking the walk.
Which is what puts you right into our wheelhouse, actually.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you.
yeah.
Okay. Well, we wish you well. Happy St. Patty's Day.
Yes.
And
the
to
Grand
you.
Marshal, top of the
Yep.
morning.
Grand Marshal.
That's right. And the rest of the day to yourself.
All right, great to have Erin with us. And again, we want you to look at that book, folks. Mourning Has Broken. Pick it up, and I'm definitely going to dive into it again because it's
Wow.
some wonderful stuff. Yeah,
Canadian legend right there.
big time.
So,
Hey guys, thanks very much. Happy St. Patty's Day to you both as well.
yes.
And we want to say thanks to our sponsors again before we take off, who always are so supportive of us and keep us going every day. To A. Miller George Funeral Home, where each life is celebrated, and their sister company, Cremation London Middlesex, both family owned and operated. And also to Hyde Park Care Pharmacy, Hyde Park Care Pharmacy, locally owned, locally operated, locally loved. And to Molly Maid, remember to make your home a healthy haven. Call Molly Maid London today. So that'll put a wrap on another edition of Vickers Crossing.
You
And
know what we're going to do, because he
What do
won't he won't say it. So I'm going to say it.
Okay.
So Erin had it right. So as we close today, after Rob and I do our close, we're going to hear some of someone's journal,
Okay.
because
Yes.
Erin is right. We got to get it out there, and this is what we're going to do. So enjoy a tune from someone's journal
And as we enjoy that, remember, Kevin, to always look both ways.
before you cross the street.
Once there was a lighthouse shining in the night. Ships out on the coastline to follow it seems right. Cottages and castles line the shore. Sunlight through the glass on a dusty wooden floor. Right by the lighthouse, searching in the dark, cared for by a sailor, looking for their heart, waiting by the coastline for the ships to arrive, hoping that the maiden sea is alive. Back to the lighthouse. The sailor growing old, telling children's stories of adventure and gold. Once there was a lighthouse.
Thank you for listening. Our hosts are Kevin George and Rob Henderson. Our producer and composer is myself, Ian, with original artwork done by Elizabeth Dodman. If you have any questions or want to know where to find us, tweet us at Vickers Crossing or find us on Facebook at The Vickers Crossing. If you have any other questions about anything heard on this podcast, leave us a comment or look in the description to find out more. Thanks!